Here are some of the Bigfoot sighting reports that bring us into the area known as the Bloody Bucket of Idaho near the Wyoming border. Submitted on March 28, 1999 at the opening of the archery season in late August or early September. Several friends and myself were camping near Elk Valley with our dads at our annual bow camp. One morning, we started our hunt at the top of a thick area of timber. I'd never been in this area before, but my instructions were to make my way through the forest and walk straight downhill. After a while, I was expected to break out into a clearing where there will be a saddle with a few rocky knolls which would drain into some ponds at the bottom. This entire area is known as the Bloody Bucket. Reason? I wasn't sure and I didn't ask. The hunt was planned out for my friends and I to slowly walk down through this area, hoping to scare out a mule deer or a bull elk and have the big game cross the path of another hunter in our party. We were spread out so far apart that we couldn't see or hear each other. As I made my way into the opening, everything was just as it was described to me. I could see where I needed to end up and meet, even though it was a ways away. I came out right in the middle of the opening and walked down to a rocky area, stopped to take a breather, and looked around. All of a sudden, down to my left about 100 yards away, I saw what appeared to be three erect, dark brown beings walking down a trail near the trees, as if they were in a hurry. They were in the order of height, with the tallest leading the way. Then a slightly smaller one followed by the smallest of the three, which was trying hard to keep up with the other two. As I took a deep breath to gather myself, to see if what I was experiencing was what I thought it was, the leader turned around and waved his or her arm in a manner as if to tell the smallest one, "Hurry up." They continued to speed walk into the timber and faded away. I was very shocked, nervous, and somewhat frightened. My heart was pounding, and I just sat there in amazement for about 15 minutes. I didn't go down to see if I could see any sign of what I just experienced. I just went down to the bottom like I was supposed to and didn't mention a word of it to anyone. I didn't think anyone would believe me anyway. A few years went by and I met up with one of my friends that I was hunting with that day. I was relieved when he told me, "Do you remember that year when we were hunting the Bloody Bucket in the Elk Valley?" Well, I've got something to tell you. He went on to describe to a T what I saw that day. It turns out that he was just a little bit ahead of me and to the right, in the trees about 75 yards away. Neither one of us knew what we were so close to each other and witnessed the same thing. It would have been nice to have someone that could have backed me up. Ever since then, I've told only a few more people. I also heard that that same summer there had been a sighting near Montpelier Reservoir, which is a few miles west of the valley. It's ironic that the only time I would probably experience something like this, and I didn't have a camera. I was also too stunned to do anything, to check anything out. I didn't hear any other sounds. Several years after these two had their Bigfoot sighting, and they spoke about it, telling each other they pretty much experienced and saw the same thing, they decided to submit their reports. This is what his friend submitted. He remembered the actual day that it happened. He says it happened in September 11th. Here is the second Bigfoot story that was submitted to BFRO. This report is a long time coming, and it is referenced to report number 1796 on the BFRO. I was camping with my dad and friends at our annual bow camp during the Labor Day weekend in the fall of 1981. This particular day, our fathers led us out of the truck along the Elk Valley Road and told us to spread out and hunt up over the ridge and down through an area known as the Bloody Bucket. They would pick us up on the other side. As I started to descend down the ridge towards a beaver pond, I saw three figures standing on the edge of the beaver pond. My first thought was, what are these people doing, wearing snowmobile suits? I thought it was strange because it was early September and warm. As I got closer, I realized that the people weren't wearing fur suits. Then it hit me, and I was really like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing Bigfoot. There were three of them, a large, a medium, and a smaller one. They had dome-shaped heads and no fur on their faces. I had no camera with me at the time. I was hunting. I was about 75 to 100 yards away from them. They walked around the edge of the beaver pond, through some scrub, aspen, and into the timber on the north-facing slope. The scrub aspen hit the tallest Bigfoot just below the shoulder. I was very nervous and started towards the beaver pond to see if I could find tracks in the mud. As I approached the scrub aspen, I realized how tall the biggest Bigfoot was. I was approximately 6 feet tall at the time. The aspen was over my head. At this point, I was really nervous and decided to go in the opposite direction and get out of the area. I remember that it was unusually quiet during the time of the sighting. Years later, I was talking to my friend who was with me on that day. He told me what he had seen, and it was pretty much the same thing. He saw the same 3 Bigfoot that I did. Here is Todd Strong's follow-up report to the investigation. I have interviewed the witness and found him to be believable, an experienced outdoorsman and hunter and familiar with the area. He had been hunting there many times before and many times after. Although he found himself hunting within several hundred yards of a beaver pond on different occasions after the sighting, he never felt comfortable returning to the exact location. He now lives in a different state. The witness never got a good description of their faces, other than they were hairless, and he felt like the group didn't see him. They never looked at him or acknowledged his presence. They were already leaving the beaver pond when he first saw them moving into the thicker cover. They were making more noise walking than he was. The largest Bigfoot walked in the front, and the smallest in the rear. He thought the leader was urging them to leave the area. They made no vocalizations and had no distinct odor. Very dark brown hair with black undercoat and noticeably cone-shaped heads. They had no problem walking smoothly through the thick scrub oak. Witness approached the beaver ponds from the southeast, and the animals were on the opposite side of the pond, which is approximately 80 feet across. The terrain between the ridge he stood on and the ponds was a gentle downhill slope with minimal cover. He had a clear view of the pond and the Bigfoots. It wasn't until the witness went down to the scrub oak and realized how big the creatures actually were when compared to the height of the underbrush, he became frightened. He never told anyone about the incident until it came up in a conversation several years later with one of his friends that was hunting the next ridge over. After comparing notes, they realized that they saw the same 3 Bigfoot, only a few minutes apart. Neither one recalls hearing anyone in the camp talking about seeing anything unusual during the hunting trip, and both didn't want to bring it up. It is unusual to have 2 different witnesses, both experienced outdoorsmen, confirm a sighting of a Bigfoot family within minutes of each other. The fact they didn't collaborate on their stories until several years later lends credibility to their accounts. I talked to Brett on the phone twice, once for an hour, the second time for 15 minutes. The witness lives out of state and had no problem sending me a Google Earth shot of the exact location where he was standing at the time. Because of the long history of Bigfoot sighting reports coming out of the Bloody Bucket area, and with witnesses seeing what appears to be a family unit, we at RMSO spend a lot of time in the area hiking and camping. One time, camping back on Whiskey Flat, we woke up to rock clacks that happened after a coyote howl in the early morning just as the sun was coming up. And the rock clacking went on for about 30 minutes until I decided to get out of the tent to check out what's going on. As soon as the zipper sound of the tent went, we never heard it again. There was a little hill behind our camp. I hiked up over the hill, and on the other side of the hill was nothing, but the clacks would clack for about a couple of minutes, stop for a couple of minutes, start up again. That went on for 30 minutes. I know people have actually seen Bigfoot rock clacking with a couple of rocks in Colorado, so I know that they do this. The other occasion that we had a Bigfoot experience was a year later. We were actually camping in the Bloody Bucket. Just as the sun was going down, just before it was going to go below the horizon in the early spring, we got some great vocalizations. It was just like watching the end of an episode of Finding Bigfoot. They do it pretty much every single episode, where they split up into 2 groups and they do their best Bigfoot screams back and forth to each other. I felt like I was watching an episode of Finding Bigfoot, hearing these vocalizations echo through the valley that night. We had not seen any other people camping in the valley during this couple of days that we were there. And I was convinced that it was a couple of people copying finding Bigfoot in a camp spot up on a ridge or somewhere, so we jumped in the car and started driving up and down the valley. After going up and down from the Montpelier Reservoir all the way up past the Bloody Bucket and not finding another soul, it started to sink in that we may have heard some Bigfoot vocalizations, and I was getting ready for a crazy night. The night actually was very mellow. We never did hear the vocalizations again. It actually started to rain again that night. It rained off and on all 3 days that we were there. It began to rain again. Maybe that's why everything mellowed out, because of these vocalizations we heard before we went and checked the valley. I expected a crazy night. I don't know, maybe us going and searching for what made the vocalizations scared them off or made them more shy. I hope you enjoyed this Bigfoot sighting report. We're going to continue looking around the Bloody Bucket. Keep on watching.